Great, thank you. Welcome to the SU Bath questions to candidates for the presidential candidates. I'm Rohan, I'm a second year politics student and the elected member of the Democratic Procedures team. This is Amy, the Deputy Returning Officer. So the way this will work is you'll each be given a minute to give an opening statement before going into some questions. And then if we have time at the end, we will take some audience submitted questions from the QR codes scattered around the room. You'll then have 30 seconds to give a closing statement, and we'll go in a different order between the three of you for each of the questions. If I mispronounce any of your names, please correct me, and if the mic cuts out, share them between yourselves, because they are maybe slightly low on battery. With that being said, I'll ask you each for a 1-minute opening statement, starting with Benji.
So, hey guys, it's Benji here, and your community officer for year 24-25. So, in my time at this role, I've realized that there's such a breadth to everything, and it takes so long to truly grasp the entire role and truly understand and forge those connections with university stakeholders, and that's the reason why I'm running for a second year. I believe that here at the university, there's a massive issue with student isolation. All of the facts I'm quoting are from Twist. So 30% don't feel part of their university community, with over 36% believing that the university and the SU don't offer the networking opportunities for them to meet people. I believe that this is because the university and the SU are not doing all that they can to promote student groups. Whether the SU is putting caps on societies or increasing bureaucracy through arduous event planners that realistically no student groups do and realistically put groups off. That's why I'm running for this role, to make sure that no student feels lonely. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move on to Sharon next.
Hi, my name is Sharon, and I'm currently a final year biomedical sciences student. My campaign is focused around access, particularly for our widening participation and international student community. And as an outreach ambassador myself, I know all too well how we advertise to prospective students how amazing university is and how many opportunities there are and how much support you're going to get. And while that is true, I still feel like there is a lot to do for these students once they get here to university. These students are often met with mouldy housing, unaffordable rent and bills, and working long hours in a part-time job to make ends meet. I feel like my policies are really strong and really focus on removing these barriers for students and strengthening the ones that we have, and a few more creative ones as well, which I'm really excited to talk about.
Thank you. And finally, Elfin.
Hi everyone, I'm Alfing, and I decided to run president because so many friends have told me that I'm a good organizer, someone who naturally steps in, solve problems, and brings a lot of people together. And I believe that under the current SU system, what we need is no longer someone to do the execution, because every student, I think, is already have the ability to act, to contribute, and to make an influence. We don't lack people who are willing to serve the student, but we lack is a leadership that empowers students to do what others cannot. So I know many people and many students who avoid to take part in your societies because they feel it's a waste of time. But I want to challenge as someone who has interviewed many job candidates, and I can tell you that the campus experience can count on a lot.
Thank you. So moving into the first question to the three of you. Why did you choose the role of president over any of the other roles? And what student leadership experience do you have that prepares you for it? We'll start with Sharon.
Yeah, so you guys may be wondering why is a biomedical sciences student running for the role of president. And actually I'm really interested in student leadership and policy. So some of my current roles has been a member of Summit this year, which has been a really great opportunity. For those who don't know, Summit is a committee of student leaders. And I feel like having that widening participation input as well has really been helpful to shape policy. And I've also been chair of the Biosciences Society as well in my second year. And that was a really great opportunity to be a part of a student group that I really enjoyed, especially on the academic side as well. As well as that, I've been an outreach ambassador. I'm also a student blogger. And yeah, I've really enjoyed all of my roles throughout my time here at university. And I would really like to represent the student voice as your SU president.
Thank you. We'll move on to Elfin next.
Okay, thank you so much. And to be honest, I'm very nervous because I was invited to do some speak before, and it's my first time to do the election. So I can do, I think I can do as SU president because I think I can make a difference for the current SU system. Because right now I serve as a leader of the Olympic breakdance judging team, and I also the secretary of World Skate Asia and the part-time global consultants of the World Bank's Renewable Energy Division. So I think what I can do is I can reshape the SU, not just for SU officers, but also for submit officers, but not all, sorry. I want to do not only for SU officers and submit officers, but for every student's experience in societies. I think every effort student put into a society should have value, whether it becomes the highlight of your survey, of your SV, a survival skill of your career, or a milestone in your personal growth.
Thank you. Your minute's up. We'll move on to Benji.
Yeah, so of course, so after an amazing year as community officer, I've really wanted to sink my teeth more into the role, and I feel like what better way to do it than president? Whether that's having casual meetings with the CEO, regular meetings with the VC, I feel like as president, you can be the voice of all students, and that's one of the reasons I'm running for this, is to be the voice of students. I feel like that's such an important characteristic when it comes to this role, alongside stakeholder management. Even if you can't solve a student's problem overnight, many students just want to be heard, and that listening to students and incorporating it into all the work you do is extremely vital. I also want to run president because, as we all know, I think it's very easy to write an unrealistic manifesto in your first year running. And after one solid year, I now know what is obtainable from the SU and what the SU has influence over. And that's why I want to enact my realistic campaign. Thank you.
Thank you. Moving on to question 2. As president, you'd be the figurehead of the SU, and that means representing over 22,000 students, as well as being the chair of the board and company director. Why are you the right person to represent all our students, and how do you feel about the legal responsibilities of chairing the organization? We'll start with Benji.
Of course. So as I mentioned first, I think it's really important to be visible. I'm a very visible person. Students can come to me if they have any issues. I feel like that's what's super important and something that I'm trying to change is increase transparency for SU officers so that students can come to the officers if they have a problem. Being a member of the Board of Trustees already, I'm well equipped of how the charity works, how charity law works, and especially on how to lead a union in that aspect. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move to Elfin next.
Okay, what I will think is that the SU is not a way that you, all the people can, only a way that all the people can voice themselves, but also for students, the SU officer need to do is to make a wise decisions for all the students, because it's like, it's not about the most popular policies should be released to all the students. It should be the most popular and most emergency and the most is the best and the policies has better ways to solve and should be released to all the students. And the SU officers should help them to decide whether it is good enough.
Thank you. And finally, Sharon.
Yeah, so I think it's really important to be a really approachable and friendly individual, especially when you're president. Someone that students can come and talk to you about their issues, someone who will actively seek out those problems as well. So organising meetings with different representatives and student leaders I think is really important. And like I mentioned before, I feel like that my leadership roles throughout my time here at university has really helped to prepare me for this role. And I think transparency is also really important as well. And I want to make sure that we communicate to our students better what the SU is doing for them.
Thank you. Moving on to question 3. In all of your manifestos, you've talked about the efficiency in the union and how quickly we respond to queries or proposals, or about bureaucracy for groups. What is your solution to resolving this issue? We'll start with Elfin.
Sorry, can you repeat the question again?
In all of your manifestos, you've talked about the efficiency of the union and how quickly we respond to queries or proposals, or about bureaucracy for groups. What is your solution to resolving this issue?
Okay, so now actually I'm not very sure about what is the entrance for students to give the feedback to SU. But what I think I would like to do is I will make this way to a very transparency way and give more entrance to students on the uni. Like you can email, or like for me, I will give my open hour to all the students to catch me on the society and on the uni, because for me it's very important to talk to people one by one and talk to society one by one to know what they really want and what they really require.
Thank you. Benji.
Yeah. Do you mind just repeating the question one last time?
In all of your manifestos, you've talked about the efficiency in the union and how quickly we respond to queries or proposals, or about bureaucracy for groups. What is your solution to resolving this issue?
Yes, of course. So in that first section, I feel like the average student, unless they're in Summit, does not have a platform in order to interact with their officers. They don't have like a level of hustings in which they can go and ask them any queries. And that's one thing that was in my manifesto, was ensuring that we have those. So one thing I proposed was either monthly or bi-monthly hustings, in which we're there 1 hour, 2 hours in happy hour, super casual. Students come if they want to. Students don't have to come if they want to, but I feel like it's very much about giving students the opportunity to do that, because it's very daunting going to an officer's office and being like, what are you doing about this? How do you think you're approaching this? And I feel like there needs to lower the stakes on how you interact with officers. Additionally, I think it's very important, which is happening right now with all of our like office changes, is making sure that we're all in one united place, so that even if you can't find a specific officer for a problem, you can ask other officers. And I feel like it's so important about that visibility aspect for officers.
Thank you. And finally, Sharon.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with Benji on this. I think this is really important. Having an open door office policy as well, where students know that they can come in, is really important. I've really enjoyed the officer blogs that we've been getting as well, the fortnightly updates, reels as well, making us look more approachable. I think is really important for students. And I think just getting involved in all of our SU events as well, like being there at the Dance Sock Showcase, the Bosom Show, Student Theatre, Varsity. The SU put on so many events for our students, and we should be there as well as our officers involved in student life as well.
Thank you. Moving on to question 4. Well-being was a common theme highlighted in your manifestos. Increasingly, the government is giving universities and SUs more responsibility in this space. Which of your proposals would you say address this issue? We'll start with Benji.
Yeah, of course. So when it comes to well-being, I think that a issue that impacts many students is accessibility, whether that's the accessibility of rooms, study spaces, university outlets. And that's why I want to carry on and ensure that the university has dedicated neurodiverse friendly study spaces. I believe that so many students feel like they can't come to the uni because it feels too clinical, it's too loud. It's a sensory nightmare, realistically, and we've seen that with the transition of the Edge into a cafe, where many students are protesting. I think it's really important to give students the platform and to really campaign the university on this policy, which is something I've been working with DAG. In addition to this, I feel like it's really important for the university to keep, and the SU, to keep promoting well-being activities. So I've been involved in Dobros, in which we hold a monthly space for men to talk about their mental health. And I feel like it's really important to offer these low-stakes social groups in which students can connect and talk about their mental health without feeling like they're being judged.
Thank you. Sharon.
I think well-being focuses a lot on
Sharon, if you wouldn't mind sharing with Benji.
I think, yeah, well-being focuses a lot on communities as well. If students don't feel like they're part of a community, that is an issue that we could have. So, some of my points in my manifesto focus on accessibility and inclusivity. So I think continuing our early arrivals program, which we piloted this year, has been really beneficial for our international student communities. I also think it's really important to protect student activism and ensure that they have the right to campaign peacefully and stand up for what they believe in. Increasing awareness and training on the support and report system, Never OK, and also increasing culturally diverse meals.
Thank you. And finally, Elfin.
Yeah, I think the well-being is a very important thing, and both for mentally and physically. So mentally, I think I have a very good policy on my manifesto. Is I want to have a 24-hour extension passes for all the students for the deadline, because I know students are very struggle on their deadlines sometimes. Like so, and for us, like the extension now is very strict. You should have some like physical or should have medical releasement statement about that, so you can have the extension. But what I want to do is like you can have a 24-hour extension, maybe just because you have a very great pressure on your current studies. So it's very important for me sometimes, and for most of the students. And of course, the career thing that I mentioned before is very important, to have the well-being and to have the improvement both in uni and in the work environment later.
Thank you. We'll now move on to question 5. Buses and transport consistently comes up from student complaints and in candidates' manifestos. Year on year, students remain frustrated about SU advancement in this space. Why will you be different? We'll start with Sharon.
Yeah, so this is the burning question that we've all been waiting for. So I think buses is a very important issue currently, especially in Bath. I think it's unfair to promise reduced bus fares for students. And I think what we can do is ensure that there are measures in place that the university will put in to support students through these increasing bus fares. So for example, one of my ideas is to introduce a bus pass loan. So for a lot of students, that these putting in a big payment at the beginning of the year is quite a lot. So having it where you can pay back the university in monthly allowances would ease that financial burden. And also ensuring that there's stronger communication as well. I know that a lot of students were kind of thrown off by the changes in the U2 bus service at the beginning of the year, not really knowing what the changes were. So I think strengthening that communication between students and the bus company as well. Yeah.
Thank you, Elfin.
Yes, I remember I see a reel from Benji about how complicated about how to like reduce the price of the buses. So I know there's very important for students and for me myself, because I see the increase of the price of the bus tickets after the Christmas. So it's like very annoying. So what I think is we can on my manifesto we can develop a very useful platform for people to track students' climbing times, because I think the policy of bus ticket is not it influences many shareholders, not only the SU, not only the University of Bath, not only the First Bus company, and also the government of Bath and many parts. So what we should do is we should find a way to benefit all the parts and should benefit all the parts, but we cost the less. So what the way I do is can track the students rules, and you can win bus tickets by this way. So will cost a lot from both uni and the company.
Thank you. Your minute's finished. And finally, Benji.
Yeah, so of course, I think it's really important about that visibility aspect, which I've excelled at in this role, is making sure that any student that wants the situation explained to them, it is explained to them. As First Bus is a private company, it's always important to find that middle ground with them. That's why with the championing of the new system of the St. James's Cemetery, increased bus capacity by 140 spaces in the first 2 hours peak time every single day, which I was a part of. Additionally, lobbying with WECA and local councils, because they are the ones that have the power, not the university. And one thing that I've been working on is that accountability aspect. It's interesting because with the 0% bus-free loans, I've been talking about that with the Director of Student Support and the Pro-Vice Chancellor, and we're looking to maybe roll it out, hopefully for the next academic year. And that is something I've been working on. And I feel like it's very important to have someone in this position that has that ingrained knowledge relating to the topic, which I very much do.
Thank you. Moving on to question 6. The role of president involves balancing a lot of different responsibilities, and especially a lot of different hats, which will constantly clash against each other. How would you balance the different time commitments, and what would you prioritize? We'll start with Elfin.
Sorry, can you repeat the question again?
The role of president involves balancing a lot of different responsibilities, and especially a lot of different hats, which will constantly clash against each other. How would you balance the different time commitments, and what would you prioritize?
Okay, so I think it's the most important strength of myself, because I have different titles and different positions in different societies and different companies. So actually I have, to be myself, I have ADHD. So it's important for me to focus on different parts, to do different things and help me focus, because the only thing I can focus is I switch different positions and do different things together, and then I can focus a lot. So I have done and successfully doing many industries and doing many fields. So I think it's the prioritize of myself and priority to do and to improve the system of SU and to do the role of president. Thank you.
Thank you. Next will be Sharon.
Yeah, so actually, I feel like I currently, as a student, have to balance a lot of different responsibilities. One of my favorite ways to balance these is definitely through scheduling. So I'm involved in all aspects of the university life, whether that be in student leadership, like my role in Summit, and previous chair of Biosciences Society. I'm also an academic representative, and I've also been involved in a lot of societies and clubs here at the university. So for example, Music Soc, Salsa Society, Volleyball Club, to name a few. So I feel like the balancing responsibilities side of things, I think I'm really good at. In terms of prioritization, I think it's really important to be out there talking to students, finding out what the issues are, giving them platforms, for example, like Summit, which we've had, I think is really important. And yeah, really focusing on the top 10 as well at the beginning of the year, I think is really important.
Thank you. And finally, Benji.
Yeah, so as community officer, I've experience with being a director of the charity, being a trustee, being a student and a coordinator, and I've been being able to balance all of these well. And I understand that being president, you're also a governor of the university, but where your priority should lie should be with students. We're elected by students, not by the university. I've had to counsel many meetings because if a student comes to my office, they are the priority. They're the person you should look after, not the university, not a meeting, because essentially you're here for them. You're not here for a university committee meeting.
Thank you. Moving on to question 7. Imagine the following scenario. The campus services team shares with you a list of rents for university managed accommodation for next year, and you see that rents will go up by 8% on average. As a student representative, you know this will not land well with students. As a student governor, you understand that the universities need to comply with its target income so that it can reinvest in campus facilities and other business continuity implications. How would you handle this situation? We'll start with Sharon. Yeah. Imagine the following scenario. The campus services team shares with you the list of rents for university managed accommodation for next year, and you see that rents will go up by 8% on average. As a student representative, you know this will not land well with students. As a student governor, you understand the university's need to comply with its target income so that it can reinvest in campus facilities and other business continuity implications. How would you handle this situation?
Yeah, so I think rent prices increasing is such a big issue. I myself have actually felt this moving from my second year and returning from placement and to my 4th year finding a house as well. This is an issue that I think we're going to have to be facing over the next few years, and it's something that I think is in the long-term plan as well. So, for example, with our civil housing strategy, I think it's really important that the university provides financial support for this. And the current cuts that we're seeing in financial support is not reflecting the rise in housing prices, transport cost. And I think it's really important that the university is held accountable for this. Some of the other points in terms of housing that I want to address are student numbers. And I think that the university really need to be thinking about whether we have enough housing for the next cohort of students, expanding our housing on student pad and improving our housing advice services as well is something that I would prioritise as president.
Thank you. We'll move on to Benji.
Yeah, of course. So this is an issue which I actually have some experience in within my role. And I believe it's really important that you must challenge these rent prices when you have your hat on as a student. You should challenge it before a paper gets sent to council. That is the correct procedure of doing things. You should be challenging things before they arrive there, so that the amendments that you want to be made are already made once you're a governor, once you're putting on that governing hat. And I feel like that's a very important thing that I've learned as a trustee of the university, of the SU, sorry, and also as a community officer, where you need to challenge things before they get to putting the best interests of the charity at heart. And I feel like that's something that I've experienced with.
Thank you. And finally, Elfin.
Yes, I think the cost of rent increase is not only the problem in Bath. That is the problem for, like, I think all the cities in UK, because the increase of cost of living, it happens all the time. So what we could do is not only like cut the cost. So what I think we could do better is to teach people how to earn more, then teach them how to cost the cost. Because and there's also a very important policy in my manifesto is I want to open more roles on campus and to advise more companies to hire students in Bath, because then if you earn enough and you don't think the rent of the cost is very high. Should I say? Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Moving on to question 8. Another hypothetical situation. If, as SU president, you have to decide on something the SU should stop doing to save money, staff resource, or space, etc., what would it be and why? We'll go to Benji first.
That is a very good question. So I feel like the SU should stop funding as much effort on looking at society's event planners. The amount of casual staff that goes into wading through emails, which are bureaucratic, lead to nowhere, and overall just put a society off studying. This was actually part of my manifesto, was slashing this bureaucracy within the SU. I believe it's wasteful, and I believe it's disincentivizing students from doing what they want. I believe that student groups are the main form of students being able to connect, because who knows better what a student wants than a student? I feel like we need to take a bottom-up approach than a top-down. And if we were going to cut anything, I would cut that. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move on to Elfin next.
I think what we should stop is we should stop only 6 roles of SU officers, because I think we should have more opportunities to more students. Because like for me, I think now the student of the SU officer only 6 roles, and I think it makes me feel like only the 6 roles and only the 6 officers can gain experience in SU or under the shade of the SU protection. But I think we can have more roles in SU, like make the community officer become a community department, make the sports officer become a sports department. So like more students can think they are the part of the community, they're part of the campus, and they can do more to the uni by themselves. Thank you.
Thank you. And finally, Sharon. Yes. If, as SU president, you have to decide on something the SU should stop doing to save money, staff resource, or space, etc., what would it be and why?
Yeah, I think the first thing I would do is actually assess like where our money is going. So as a normal student, I don't have access to what the SU is spending, but that would be the first thing that I would do if I come into office. I'd identify firstly who are affected. So I think more and more students are affected due to the cost of living, mainly our widening participation and international students. I'd also ask the question about why they're struggling. So I think bursary cuts, rising prices on campus, bus fares, guarantor schemes. What we could do, I think we could give students more choice on bursaries, introducing a bus pass loan, and how we'd get these finances. I think really expanding our alumni fund as well, strengthening those connections that we have with our alumni, partnerships with other unions as well. So for example, our GW4 Alliance that we have with Bath, Exeter and Cardiff as well, ensuring that we are sharing resources, and improving student recruitment with more international programs and summer schools, reducing hidden costs at university, and advertising more flexible part-time jobs for students.
Thank you. We're now going to move on to some audience-submitted questions. The first of which is, if elected, what's your plan for tackling the most urgent issue on campus within your first 100 days? We'll start with Sharon. That question was, if elected, what's your plan for tackling the most urgent issue on campus within your first 100 days?
I think space an issue, especially in the first few weeks when a lot of students are coming to campus. I think space is definitely where we lack, especially with increasing student numbers. So one of my ideas actually is to increase a live study space map. So this would give students the opportunity to assess where their study spaces are available, which would reduce time searching for a study space and also make sure that our study spaces are being used efficiently. I feel like a lot of students don't know where certain study spaces are on campus either. So having a sort of map that shows you exactly where your study spaces are, I think would be something that could be done immediately.
Thank you. Elfin.
Yeah, and the funny thing, interesting thing is, when I asked for endorsement from the Some Society, and they asked me whether you can promise you can give more budget if you elected as the SU president, I said no, I can't, because I think the first thing and then the urgent thing I could do after I elected is I need to speak to society one by one, and I should give the priority to things of like what kind of things I have to do and what kind of things I could do and what kind of things I should do, because according to the priority, like what I can do now is I don't know. I'm not very sure about what is the emergency and what is the urgent things that each societies want as you do. So I can't make any promise right now.
Thank you. And finally, Benji.
Yeah, so as I mentioned in my manifesto, I believe that the main concern for the union right now is the isolation of its members. As the first 100 days are over summer, I believe that this is a perfect opportunity as there are no students to really do a full review of our system, full review of how societies are applied, how students are then supported once they're in, and what paperwork do students really need to do in order to host socials. With 30% of students not feeling a part of the university community, I believe that this is such a massive issue. 30%, that's over 5,000 students in the university that don't feel a part. And I believe that it's really important to ensure that any student that wants to start a group is supported.
Thank you. Moving on to a second audience submitted question. Can you debate between past experience versus new energy and input to the role? We're going to start with Benji.
Oh, yeah, of course. So I believe with 1 year is such a short time, with the breadth of the role, it genuinely takes 5 months to fully understand all of your roles, all of your responsibilities, all of the hats that you have to wear. And I found that 1 year is not enough to enact meaningful policy. It's only been within the last 3 months where I've been most efficient in my role, just because of how much time it takes to get used to it, how all the staff you have to meet, all the university directors that you have to meet. There's so much to get, and it's so impossible to do that within such a short span. And that's why I believe that it's really important to have that consistency with whether that's the SU strategic direction, whether that's following on the legacy of Twist, ensuring that the SU is represented not only locally but nationally to a high standard. And I believe that having someone with 1 year's experience being on the board of trustees, understanding what it's like to be an SU officer that isn't president is really, really vital.
Thank you. Elfin.
Yeah, what I think is very, and one word I very believe in is the SU president should come from the community, come from the society, and go back to serve people from the society. That is also the part I truly believe I lack of, and Benji and Shara, they are very good support on that. But I think another thing is I also believe is we should make the society, make the SU office more consistent by not only like change the president, it should be a consistent way, like what I said before, it should work like a company. So like even though the president and the officer changed, the policy can consist. Yes, thank you.
Thank you. And finally, Sharon.
Yeah, so being a student for the past 4 years, I already feel really integrated within the community, whether that's my involvement in the societies or through my student leadership. I have 3 years of experience working with the university, and I've also recently been involved with the SU through my roles as academic representative and member of Summit, so I have awareness on current policies that students are wanting to push this year. And I think my willingness to learn as well, and my placement really taught me about being able to adapt really quickly into an environment, and I understand like the learning curve to the job, but that's something that I'm willing to do and willing to put in my work and my effort. And I feel like I've already learned so much already, not just through this campaign, but also just being really involved with the Students' Union this year, and I would, love to be the president next year.
Thank you. Moving on to a third audience submitted question. What would you propose to do for students who are in Bath over the summer? For example, international students, postgraduates, or Australian students? And we'll start with, a moment, Elfin.
So to be honest, I didn't know many of the activities happened over the summer. It's like for me, I'm an international student, so I spent a very good time for the Christmas in Bath, and I think I will continue to what the SU office doing right now, because for me, I'm an international student. Through the events like SU doing right now, I benefit a lot. So I think I will continue on what they are doing now. Thank you.
Thank you. Next is Benji.
Yeah, so in terms of context for this question, I've had the pleasure of working here over summer and seeing this firsthand. And it really is crazy how much of SU space, whether that's the edge, is then used for conferences. And I feel like this links into that bigger picture around space, about what is an SU building and what is a university building, and really campaigning for our rights as an SU to own this building, not only now, but over summer. This question also links into my policies on loneliness and societies. We need to encourage postgraduates to start their own societies. We really need to encourage students to take into that initiative to form that community, because this community is formed from the bottom up, not from us providing students. I've hosted mixers, and yes, they're amazing during Freshers Week, and yes, they're a great tool, but they don't form meaningful community that a hobby or shared interest will form. So I feel like it's really important to promote that to students and really allow them and give them the facilities to take that initiative and really be the student-led SU that we are.
Thank you. And finally, Sharon.
Yeah, I have also worked at the university over the summer, and I think it's been really great to see our summer schools being expanded. But I think there is we can do a lot more, and also supporting our early international arrivals program, ensuring that these students are fed 3 meals a week, workshops, helping them to adapt to the culture here, healthcare, banking as well, and ensuring that our Be Well activities in the Edge are run during the summer, and that our student services are open, and that we really strengthen our international student support in particular.
Thank you. And moving on to the final question before closing statements. How do you plan to tackle university policies that may negatively impact the student body? We'll start this question with Benji.
So is that in terms of being within a committee and they're proposing things that will impact students, or?
Yes.
I believe it's really important that when there's a policy that's going to be implemented, that we gather student feedback. I had experience with this when it was with the student support services. Were they going to close over weekends and increase their capacity during the week? What should we do? And the way you should tackle this is by asking students. As a representative, you're there to be the voice of students. You aren't there to dictate what you want or what you don't want. You really need to really input that student feedback. And that's something that I think is so important. It's something that I've woven into my manifesto, with increasing that transparency between officers, increasing that availability for officers to be able to get student feedback so that they can go to university committee policies and be like, look, 76% of students don't like this policy. This will negatively impact students, instead of giving an opinion, because I feel like facts have more weighting than words. And I feel like that's what's really important, is that we have to be driven by what student voice tells us.
Thank you, Sharon.
Yeah, I'd like to break this down into 3 kind of parts. I think firstly, student decision and student feedback is really important. So having places like Summit for our students and different representatives from different backgrounds is really important. One of my manifesto points is also including a sustainability rep into Summit as well. I think that sustainability is something that we should really integrate into our new policies as well. Having conversations with students, like I said, being present in the community, being visible, also improving our comms, giving students more opportunity to provide us with feedback, whether that's through forms or forums, and then Also working with national bodies, so this feedback would then go on to them, such as the NUS, local council, Senate, Wonky as well for writing blogs, and ultimately taking it to Parliament. I think meetings as well. So this morning I actually met with John Blake, who was the Director of Access and Participation at the Office for Students. So I think really being able to communicate that with these individuals is really important.
Your minute is up. And finally, Elfin.
Yeah, we see a lot of like various of events happens in SU this year because I only spent like half a year yes, in Bath. So like I take part in many activities, and I found we lack of like the feedback platform. So what I think we maybe should have is not only a pool of like votes for the students who take part in the events to say whether the event is good or not. We should also have heard feedback from we should calculate the percentage of participants of each event, like what we expect to have and what we actually have, and we also need to have the feedback from the students who did not take part in the events and hear from them about why they don't take part and what the reason to influence them to do that. Thank you.
Thank you. I believe unanswered audience questions will be forwarded on to the candidates after the session. With that, we move into closing statements. You'll have 30 seconds to make your final pitch to the voters. We'll start with Elfin.
Yeah, what I said before, I believe the SU president and all the other officers should come from the community, come from the society, and go back to serve people, serve students from the society. But what I can do best, and I believe the SU president should do, is recognizing strengths, empowering people, improving systems, and unlocking opportunities. And I'm more than willing to leverage my personal resource and networks to help students turn their potential into something meaningful. Thank you.
Thank you. Sharon.
First of all, I just want to say thank you to all my campaign team who have been amazing today, and you'll see us on the parade for the rest of the week as well. I'm really committed to making a real positive change here, and I want to hear more from our student community on this. I think my willingness to learn and my dedication to the role is something that will really help me this year. This election is all about building a stronger, more inclusive and more affordable university experience, and I hope I can count on you to vote for Shaz.
Thank you. And to round out our session, Benji.
So after a year within this role, I've had the pleasure of being the face that students can turn to when they have issues. Having spent a year as an officer, I have the lived experience as an SU officer that isn't president in order to lead a team forward. My main concerns are isolation, sustainability, and ensuring that postgrads aren't excluded from normal SU activities through societies. After a year as community officer, I have the experience, the knowledge, and connections to deliver a realistic manifesto and really hit the ground running next year as president. So that's why you should back Benji.
Thank you. And with that, questions for candidates to the presidential candidates is finished. Thank you all for attending.